There we go. Feels like the last meeting was forever ago, only 2 weeks, or maybe 3 weeks or so. So thanks for joining, guys. The first meeting in August. Glad to have an awesome guest today, 𝐑𝐞𝐚𝐜𝐡 with Elevated Entitlements. And he's going to give us some more in-depth insight of who he is, what he's doing, some background. And thank you, Sam. That was your referral, right? That your introduction?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, thank you for the intro. Once again, if you ever have any great resource that you guys want to share with everybody to come on and speak and share some insights about whatever niche, whatever in our industry, so that's highly welcome. So Kevin, give us the good word and take over the screen.
Thank you. No, I appreciate everyone's time, and thank you for allowing me to be here today and present in front of you. And I know this is during your lunchtime, so please feel free to eat if you need to eat in front of the camera, not a problem. My name is 𝐑𝐞𝐚𝐜𝐡. Our firm is Elevated Entitlements. We're located here in Thousand Oaks, California. The firm is a urban planning design firm. We specialize in city planning and expertise in land use entitlement and processing. Is everybody able to see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yes.
A little bit of background about who I am. I'm a former city planner by trade. I used to work for the city of Los Angeles and Anaheim as a city planner. From there, I worked in the private side for private consulting firms. I've worked in the nonprofit and the public sector. I've also served as a former planning commissioner for the city that I live in Thousand Oaks. So seen all aspects of the planning realm. Our firm is a specialized urban planning firm with experience in city planning, zoning, and land use entitlement areas. So, which is specific for your type of work and understanding the property's underlying zoning requirements for the municipal code and what is the allowed or preferred use on that property. We help serve as a middleman between the developer and the city official. So we come in and are more of a mediator between those two parties. We work with also third-party agencies. We work with Army Corps of Engineer, Regional Water Quality Control Board, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, U.S. Fish and Wildlife. These are more complex agencies that you may deal with when you're buying a vacant land that has a riverine or a natural sensitive environmental resource on the property. We've established strong relationships with a number of cities throughout Los Angeles, and particularly City of Beverly Hills, City of Los Angeles. We're assisting the City of Ventura on their backlog of projects. But we've just given our depth and experience, we've established a number of relationships with city staff. Our services include many through the development review process. So we can start something simple as you've identified a property, you want to know what the zoning of the property is, what the setback requirements, the height requirements, what is the total buildable area allowed on that land to do a proposed housing development, commercial development, things of that sort. We help with the environmental review process. So if the property needs to go through the California Environmental Quality Act, if there's a environmental document or technical study that needs to be prepared, we help bring that team together for the developer or the applicant to get the approval through the city. We also work with community relations. When the project goes for a proposal to the city, we help with working with community members to understand what the proposed project is, what is their concerns about the project, and helping to alleviate any concerns maybe through design, through implementation, and bringing it in front of them early in the planning review process so there's no surprises at ultimate approval. So what is planning? Planning really regulates what is allowed and how these cities are developed in California and throughout our states. In particular to California, we have something called the general plan. The general plan is our the Bible of the city. It's the overall guiding document to the city that constitutes for future development. So it tells what the goals are for the city and what they want to see in the city the next 30, 40, 50 years from now, from a land use perspective. So we just recently completed a general plan update for the city of Fontana as an example. City of Fontana, they wanted to have a more walkable, downtown friendly, more urban type of land uses proposed in their city. So we helped create a number of elements for the city's review. So they include land use, circulation, housing, open space, noise and circulation, and described what are the uses allowed for the general plan and how can we cultivate or shape the city to meet what the goals are from the city council and city manager. So in this case, City of Fontana, they wanted to have a more walkable downtown area. We proposed more mixed use land use designations. We made more pedestrian friendly uses on the downtown area that will allow for more growth or economic growth in the area. And this is just a simple diagram that kind of shows what is a planning program hierarchy. What is the top of the hierarchy and what is the bottom? So first, the top is your general plan. That's the guiding document to the city. Next, you have your community plan or specific plan. That is the specific design regulations to a certain community development. And then you get into your development project, which is your application particular to the proposed development. So your general plan is your overall guiding document, and your development project must adhere to that general plan and zoning designation. And then the question is, what is land use? Land use is your designation of allowed uses per that property. So the general plan says, this property, we want 30 years from now to be a commercial property, but for now, we're gonna leave it as an industrial site as the current zoning. But in the future, we envision this site as a commercial site. So the general plan allows to give flexibility to the property owner of what can be done 30, 20 years from now. And the zoning is what currently is the allowed use today. So this is a funny kind of comic I found that shows a nursery next door to this farm, and the dogs are looking at the nursery and a quiet use. And it shows how zoning works by putting compatible uses near each other, right? So we want to make sure residents are not next to a industrial loud area. We want to make sure schools are not next to something that would cause any effects to air quality or noise to the students next door. So that all comes with your land use planning. This graphic shows what a general plan land use map looks like. So when you look at a property, you're looking at these funny colors of green, blue, red, and they all symbolize different land use designations and correspond to what is allowed. So for example, this is City of Thousand Oaks where I live, and the city is largely surrounded by green color, green land uses, which represent open space. Everything in orange is a medium density residential. Everything in red you'll see is along the main corridor, which is commercial. So they've designed their city to have more commercial uses along the main corridor. And as you deviate outside of the main corridor, it goes from the orange to medium density to yellow to less intensive, which is single family, to green, which is open space. So they're doing a kind of concentric circle out of development. Of course, Thousand Oaks is a suburban area, so quite different than LA and how they've designed their land uses. Now zoning, what is zoning? So zoning, as I described before, it establishes the use, but also what are the requirements of that use. So the requirements include height, setback, lot coverage, landscaping requirements. These are all development standards that are contained in your zoning ordinance or zoning development code. So when you discover a property for a client, you say, I found this property, they're in a commercial zone. However, they need to meet a 30-foot height limit, 5-foot setback. You need to have a lot coverage of this 30% and a floor area ratio of this ratio. So there's a development standard that that developer must adhere to if they were going to develop that site. And this is just a quick snapshot. There's so much more to talk about planning, but I wanted to give the rest of the presentation more to questions or comments that may be specific to your field. But this just gives you a gist of planning 101 in a small capsule of time. I appreciate your time, and I'll open up to any questions.
Yeah, Kevin, this is as you just mentioned, it's a really just a small piece, a taste, a tease, if you may.
Right.
And I have no doubt this is going to be right now evolve into more in-depth conversation. First question I have for you is, you woke up one morning, right, and said, I'm passionate about zoning. How did it happen?
Good question. I didn't wake up one morning passionate about zoning. I came passionate about architecture and placemaking, and how does a building become developed? How is it designed? And that placemaking turned into, okay, this is one building. How are cities designed? How are cities? Why is a school here? Why is my house in this community developed like this? Why do I have a park near me? That all comes with city planning. And it became architecture, not just from a silo, but from a city as whole. And I thought that was interesting. And I pursued my education in that for my bachelor's, master's, and just continue to explore that opportunity. And what I've gotten from that is you learn about placemaking, you learn about code design, and then also helping developers navigate through this process, which can be pretty complex.
For sure, yeah. And if I had to guess, your favorite game growing up was probably Monopoly.
Yes.
So, and thank you for sharing those various slides. And as you mentioned at the very beginning, before we started the session today, you're gonna send me a copy of this presentation. Yes. I'm gonna send it to all of you guys who joined today in our group. It's really a very mixed, very diverse presentation that covering multiple topics, which is pretty phenomenal. What do you, and that's my last question, then let's open up, please. Sure. What is, from your experience, right, working with multiple entities, etc. On this call, you have primarily very experienced real estate commercial agents, right, brokers, etc. From your experience, what do you think is most important for the commercial agent to know? To what extent to make it easier for them, the clients, and for someone like you in your position?
No, that's a great question. So I work with commercial agents all the time. The question I get is, Kevin, is this an allowed use in this zone? My tenant wants to open X type of business. Is this an allowed use? If they can do it, what does it take to get to do it? That's a question I'm always asked. And I help understand that process, help the client through that process in a more expedient process, and also help them navigate through the code to maybe work with the code, but also be creative with the code to maybe even allow the use there when maybe the code may not be so flexible to the applicant or developer. So I think for your team, what we can be a benefit in is assisting you to provide more informed decision making, more due diligence before your client moves forward with the property, and make you more well-rounded to say, hey, I have the team, I have the experience where I can get you in this business or in this location, and if there's issues you're having with the city, I can help you navigate through that with this team member.
That's awesome. On spot, Kevin. I have first question just was sent to me by Ray Rodriguez, who couldn't make it to the call yet. And he's asking if you can talk a little bit about transit-oriented communities and opportunity zones.
Sure. So City of Los Angeles has a program called TOC, Transit Oriented Communities. The TOC program was started back in 2016. And what it allowed for is more density bonus and incentives to developers to build near major transit communities. So City of Los Angeles wanted to change the outlook of the city from going from more car dominated to more public transit. And in order to do so, they needed to encourage developers to bring more density or units to those major transit centers. So City of Los Angeles started to expand their metro rail and metro service to outside areas, and allowed a specific zoning designation called TOC, or Transit Community, to allow a simple commercial building or use that may have not had as much zoning flexibility to getting now the greatest amount of flexibility, meaning getting the maximum amount of density for housing, for setback reduction, height increases, parking reductions, in order to allow a housing development or mixed use development to be near a transit stop. And the intent of that is people will drive less, live near where they work, or hop onto the metro or train to get to where they need to be in a more urban setting.
Great, Kevin, thank you. And I'm gonna make sure that Ray is gonna watch us afterwards. Galen, you have a question?
Yes, thank you so much. I'm Galen Barnes from the Newport office. And thank you for sharing this information. You know, a loaded question that we all have seen is the lack of inventory. And I know that sometimes it gets a little politicized, you know, but what is your recommendation or your advice to us agents in terms of, say, if we have land and, you know, sometimes we're in different cities, but how we can maybe get through either planning and development to building departments and, you know, being able to present something to the right people or reach the right individuals in these departments. Who do you recommend we should be speaking to in order to, you know, get to the destination to build more housing?
That's a great question. So what's unique about California is we are now getting incentives not only locally and municipal level, but now from the state. So the state is encouraging housing through SB 330 and allowing density bonuses, parking reductions, and helping to alleviate some of the pushback from many of these municipalities through the planning review process. Now, where to start? Your best start is always starting with planning, but there are different levels of planners. You have assistant planner, senior planner, principal planner. The best is always to go directly to the community development director. The director speaks directly with the city manager, and they have weekly calls, monthly calls to look at opportunity sites or sites that have potential for housing. And if there's a property that you've identified as a vacant lot that may fit their bill of what they also expect for housing, that's the best place to start. And they will give you the right direction to meet with each team member within the planning, building and safety, public works to move your project forward.
Great. Could we attend some of these meetings? Are these meetings public?
So these meetings are not public, they're internal. However, they do regularly make updates during their city council meeting. And they make updates about what projects are designated as opportunity sites. So that information is made public, but as regards to internal discussions, those are behind closed doors.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the insight. And so reaching out to community development director is the best, is what you're saying. And then from there, getting guided, either attending some of these city council meetings, and or maybe if we see an empty, desolate building, I mean, they're trying to convert an office building or a large, you know, retail center,
right,
to, you know, I know we're sometimes reaching for the stars because
right,
we are out of inventory. Even warehouse right now, we have no inventory on warehouses. So
right. And I recommend you reach out to us. Shoot us an email, say, hey, I've identified the site. Can you check the underlying zoning? Is there a potential for a zone change? Can you put together a quick due diligence? And I can give you a, hey, this is worth exploring and reaching out to community development director, or no, the general plan and zoning show this strictly as let's say industrial, and there's not a likelihood that they will convert it or do a zone change to a different type of use.
Awesome. Terrific. Thank you.
Great
Kevin?
question, Galen. That's awesome. Sam.
Hi, Kevin. I mean, I worked with you in the past. You also do feasibility studies, highest and the best use on a land or property. Can you like help us with a, let's say, a price sheet where we can offer to our clients, we can, say, hey, you can do a feasibility on your property. That will help me get a listing, and it will also help you, basically with a feasibility study, or a potential client to do a, land use. Are you interested in doing that?
Definitely. Yeah, we do support with feasibility analysis or highest and best use analysis to determine the number of units that could be permitted on site, what is the maximum buildable area that could be developed on site, and putting that quick analysis together for a prospective buyer is always helpful. So if they're looking at the site, they said, okay, maybe I can work this out. Looks like I can get 20, 50 units here. And then they are able to make a more informed decision of how to move forward.
Okay, if
Kevin.
you can put a package together, that would be great. Go ahead, Yashar.
Sammy John, good to see you. And I always, love the background. So don't change.
No problem.
Kevin John, this is David Yashar. Hope you're doing well. Thank you
Hi,
for your
David.
time. How are you?
Doing good, thank you.
And I apologize. I don't know if we've talked in the past, but if we have, it's a pleasure speaking with you again. My question is going to be same kind of like what Sam just touched. So, we're example, like we just picked up a listing. The value is not on the retail stores. The value is on the land, especially the location, just after the freeway, 10 freeway, that is, corner location. Long story short, so if I want to come to you from time to time, and again, not to take a lot of your time, but just to come to you and say, Kevin John, this is the site. You can just, preliminary, just let me know what you can and you cannot do here. Would that be okay? And then, of course, the next thing would be what Sammy just touched on, if that's okay.
No, of course. We do that all the time for team members in doing a quick due diligence. And I'm happy to do that for you as well, or any of your team members here. And that would allow you to give a better demonstration or illustration of what the true value of the property is to your client.
Sure.
And say, hey, this may be a retail zone now, but the underlying zoning is actually TOC. It's a tier 4
right.
TOC. There's this much density bonus. There's this much units that you can do. This is really your true value. And you can help sell and tell that story to your client. Of
course. Now, do you guys also have interest yourself, your group, your company? And I apologize, I joined the call a little late, but are you guys interested yourself, or are you just only doing this for the clients and the principals?
I've done my own development on my own, but our company strictly assists the developer through that entitlement process. So we don't get involved financially. We just contractually serve as a planning manager and an expediter for the project. Excellent. Very good. And what's the best time to usually reach you? Is it morning time? Anytime. Evening? Anytime. I'm available. And my contact information is on the screen with my cell phone, email, and office line. So feel free to reach me at any of those lines. All right. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Kevin,
can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Albert. I'm with Keller Williams Realty. A question is that, again, as a layman, I'm talking, it is very easy to talk about all these things, but when you go to the city planner, they say, yeah, go do it. And when you get the plans done and spend all that money, you go there, they put 1,000 different changes and violations and variations.
Oh, yeah.
All that stuff. Are you guys like basically helping in advance so we can minimize those complications?
Exactly.
I mean, this is saying it is one thing, verbally hearing it from them is one thing, and in reality, I heard horror stories and nightmares, especially from our city of LA. I don't know the other cities, but
City of LA is very difficult, but you're correct. What we do is plan check review. So prior to your architect submitting the plans on behalf of your client, we do our preliminary review of that plan before you submit it to catch any code violations or designs that are not meeting development standards, to ensure that your project planning review process is more streamlined, so that you're not coming back for corrections 1, 2, 3, 4 times. And we are able to do such because we've served for these cities on behind the planning counter, so we know what they look for. So if that's something that you would like us to look at from a plan check review standpoint, we're happy to do such.
I mean, even though you're you're not exactly like physically in LA, you will handle and do LA County.
Oh yeah, we have over 20 projects in LA.
Okay.
From TOC projects to Starbucks to self-storage facilities to solar projects. We do it all. Yeah.
Kevin, you've done one on Westwood Boulevard, your project on
We
National
did.
and Westwood, yeah.
Yes, we did a 50 unit 2930 Westwood Boulevard. It's a TOC program. We're doing one at 1930 South La Cienega, 3475 Slauson, 200 South Vermont. We're all over Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And those are all specifically TOC multifamily development.
Kevin, I'm just trying to clarify this, assuming that, as some of people said, there is a listing or there is a lot or there is a building or there's something we see there is potential into it. Is this when we come to you? I mean,
yes,
that we want to help the seller to clarify, and naturally we don't want to overstep our agency or brokerage.
Right.
You know, I'm not an architect. I'm not an expert about you.
Right.
And
I want you, Albert John, to feel like I'm an extension of your team. So you can use us to make more informed decisions. So you say, Kevin John, I found a property. This looks like it has potential, but I want to make sure I give the client the right information before I present it to them. Can you verify the zoning? Can you verify what the ultimate and highest best use of this property is?
It's a great,
what about zone variations? Is this such thing as, let's say the guy has an R2 and he's asking me if I can do a zone variation to R3, R4 because I'm on a main street or whatever. I don't know. A lot of these sellers have.
That's a good question. They call that zone change. And zone changes are common. It is a more lengthy process. And I can give you guidance on the likelihood of the city supporting it or not.
Is it inconsistency basis? Like if it's inconsistent?
Exactly. And it goes back to my slide regarding the general plan. So this kind of graphic here showing what the future or ultimate use of the land is. What we would do, for example, for City of Los Angeles is look at their general plan to see what is the ultimate use that the city wants to see on that property. If the zoning is single family, but the general plan shows it as multifamily, the likelihood of you getting a zone change to multifamily is a lot greater, because the 30-year plan for the city is to see that property as a multifamily property. So yeah. I'll be able to help you decipher that to give you an idea of what the likelihood of the city supporting it.
The problem with that is if the seller, if that information is not 100% known, then the seller would probably want to keep their property. They're not going to want to sell because they want to get the future value of the property. So it's just that's something is I ran into that issue with a lot of sellers. Oh, you know, they're gonna do this. They're gonna upzone my land, and you know, they don't want to sell. Yeah.
Is such a plan that you have here?
Points. Sorry, go ahead.
The plan that you're showing for general plan of Thousand Oaks, like, you know, from now to 30 years down the road, where can we find a plan of this nature for, let's say, LA County? Is that ZEMAS or is this? Like,
so ZEMAS is LA City. ZEMAS is LA City. LA County has its own system. I'm happy to share that with the team. It's called LA County GIS. but it's a similar process where you can see the ultimate zoning and land use designation for the property.
Okay, if these are 20, 30 years in future, I'm just saying hypothetically, if you go back 30, 40 years ago, the plans and the stuff that they did, and they were like expecting for that to happen, is it really happening? I mean, we are talking about 30 years down the road, they come up with so many changes and so many crazy new zoning and codes and all that. I'm just wondering, are these really happening? Is this?
They are happening, but very slowly, especially in the city of Los Angeles. Many of these zone changes or ultimate development outlook for these certain communities, they're going through the planning review process very slow. So for example, I'm doing a project in the Canoga Park specific plan, which is, or even the Warner Center specific plan, where they've introduced a lot more mixed use zoning. That plan took many years to get established and finalized, but once it became established, now you see all the new development near Warner Center, and you see all the high rise come in, the multifamily. That is all through this planning review process, but it can take years to develop. So this is Zemus. Are you able to see my screen here?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is Zemus, for example, which is only city of Los Angeles. This gives you an idea of the zoning on the property. So this is the C2 zoning. And then it will give you an idea of also what the general plan land use designation. So the general plan here is general commercial. So this property will always remain as general commercial. There's no intention of it to be a single family industrial or any other type of use. So these are things that we will check. And then there's also other guiding documents that we will look into to make sure that you're meeting the design requirements. So this site, for example, was a site that we recently entitled for a 50-unit multifamily development.
Kevin, I'm sorry, this may be a little bit silly question, but let's say, remember you said minimizing the setbacks?
Yes.
Let's say a property is supposed to have 5 feet setbacks. Long story short, we build it on 3 feet and city approves it. And suddenly there is an inspection and the new inspector comes in and says that, what's happening here? Why is it 3 feet setback? And we show him the plans and the final permits, and it says, no, this is against the code. So has this ever happened? And what happens in a situation of that nature, let's say?
So that does happen. And what you need to refer to is your permit number from the city. So sometimes planning is not talking to building and safety or the inspector. So making sure that you have record of that planning approval. And usually it comes in the form of a planning permit number or a staff report. And that is given to you once you get the clearance from planning. And if you ever get pushback from building and safety or the inspector, you share with them that document so they know that you're adhering to a variance on the property or a change on the property.
So basically that's set in stone. They cannot come back.
That's set in stone. The only way to get around that is if someone will have to appeal your project and that approval.
Thank you.
And then you have to go through a land use attorney in that
Right.
event,
You would need to get an attorney involved and then go back to a public hearing review process.
Oh my gosh.
That's when I need to call Kevin first, just to make sure.
I'll save you costs on attorney costs.
Yeah, everything is set properly. One question from Jason on the chat asking, would you help clients with change of use permit process as well?
Yes, we do change of use permit, which is a zone change. We also help with conditional use permit or CUP. That's also a similar process, which allows a certain type of use to be conditionally allowed in that zone. We help with variances. We help with zone changes. We have any discretionary action that the applicant is seeking to either modify or deviate from the code.
Thank you.
So one last question. I know I asked too many questions, but one last question. So, I have a client, you already know him. He has 35 liquor stores.
Mhm.
and he has on a bunch of his properties, he has a CUP for a security guard, armed security guard. And this all happened due to the Rodney King riots back in the days. Okay, so can we go back and change it and take it out of the CUP?
You can request a CUP amendment,
Oh, you can.
and the CUP amendment will relook and modify the language that was approved back in the 80s. And the process to go through that will require a public hearing. But yes, there is an avenue to remove that condition.
Okay, thank you.
So Kevin, question. I'm not sure if you have the answer to this, but based on the trends that you've been seeing over the last few years, would you say we're headed towards a higher density, more lax environment or lower density? Because I mean, for years I was telling people, you know, if you can build it today, build it, because it's going to be lower and lower density. And then 2016 came TOC, and then 2020 came with ADUs. And it's looking now like there's a new sort of, you know, things are getting relaxed every year.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It is becoming more relaxed, and it's coming from the state, from the governor, encouraging more housing. And he's been providing more incentives for developers and landowners to allow for more housing. And these cities are having less, there's less restrictions put on place in cities to block or not allow a development to happen. So for example, city of Huntington Beach decided, no, we don't agree with your housing, the state's housing program to increase housing for our city. And we don't agree with the governor's action. We're not going to increase our housing capacity. And the governor sued that city. And that is possible. So you have to meet something called the RHNA, Regional Housing Needs Assessment, that the state puts onto each city. And if the city doesn't abide by meeting those housing goals or elements, the governor and state can put restrictions or fines to that city.
So let me pose a hypothetical question here. Someone tells you, so I've got this piece of land, it's zoned for, call it 60 units with TOC and whatever. I think I should hold on to it because in 5 or 10 years, they're going to up the zoning and then I'll be up to 100 units on this by right. Would you think that's a reasonable statement?
No. And I say that because TOC, yes, is a program that we have now. Doesn't mean it's going to be here forever. There could be a time where, because TOC is a city program, not a state-led program, the city can say, okay, we've met our housing needs. Looks like we got all the housing in this housing capacity that we need for our city. Therefore, we're going to rescind or take away the TOC program. So what I always recommend my clients is if you have a TOC property, do a TOC verification form. That verifies your property for at least 2 years as a TOC program. So if they do take away the TOC program tomorrow, you're grandfathered in and still have that zoning right.
Yeah, I ran into a very bizarre situation with that during beginning of COVID. Because of the bus route changes.
The bus route's changing, yep.
I had plans like 80% done, and then they revoked my TOC status.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if they had that TOC verification form, they wouldn't run into any issues.
Yeah.
Kevin, can I ask you a quick question in regards to opportunity zones?
Sure.
Is there such thing like a map like Zima's or something that we would know a specific property whereabouts it is in that?
Yes. Opportunity zones are led by the state and federal program. It is public information. I do have a map that you can use to navigate which properties are in opportunity zone. For City of Los Angeles in particular, you can also find that information on ZMIS. And maybe in our next brown bag meeting, I can do a ZMIS walkthrough.
Can I say something?
Absolutely. Yes.
CoStar also has an opportunity zone tab if you're looking for properties in opportunity zone. And also Google Earth has an opportunity zone overlay. Okay. And also if you know the area's specific census tract, you can go on MLS and you can find all the properties in opportunity zone, the areas that you're looking for. is it's a very simple process. You just have to know how to, play
Navigate.
around with the tool.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Is there something that has to get done for a property or a project to be opportunity zone qualified, or just the fact that you buy it in the opportunity zone is not enough?
So the opportunity zone gets its designation from the states or the federal program, and they get it by being in a certain demographical area with demographics, employment, income in that area. That designates it as an opportunity zone. So they have their specific formula to make that designation. Once you're in the opportunity zone, you as a developer or client don't need to do anything on your end. However, if you were to sell or buy the property, of course, if you go through a 1031 exchange program, your taxes are deferred on that property. So there's no tax on the sale of your previous property to the 1031 exchange on your new purchase of the opportunity zone property.
Right. I guess what I'm asking is I have clients who have bought properties to develop in opportunity zones, and they kept asking me, what do I need to do? Are there forms I need to file, or is it just you buy it, hold it for whatever the amount of time is, and you're good to go?
Yes. Yeah. Buy and hold. There's no additional forms or paperwork that needs to be done.
Hey, Kevin.
Yes.
Hi, this is David. Actually, personally, I've done opportunity zone. There are guidelines that you have to follow. You have to make some changes to the property within the 30 months period. And every 6 months, you have to do a certification with IRS. So there are guidelines that you have to follow.
Through IRS, right?
Right.
For planning, there's none, but you're correct. For IRS, there is.
Right.
Correct. So for tax purposes, yes, you will. That's a good point, David. You need to go through the IRS for tax purposes, but from a planning standpoint with the city, there's
No, you don't have to.
no application.
No application. That's correct.
Also, if your intent is to take advantage of the opportunity zone, before you buy that property, you gotta have an account, special account. It's called the opportunity zone fund account, and it needs to be designated just for the purchase of that land and for the improvement of that land. And you have to spend 90% or more on what the property is worth. So let's say you buy the property for $1 million, you have to spend at least $900,000 to improve it. I guess, are you also doing the Slauson project from Human?
Yes.
Okay,
That's
so
also opportunity zone.
Yeah, that's opportunity zone, exactly.
And by the way, David is from the South Bay office in Torrance. Shaya is from the Larchmont office. Just in case you don't know who the players are, so you guys also know how to connect all the dots. We spread from Newport,
That's great,
all the way up to Calabasas, as far as I see. We also have Bakersfield, but he's not here on the call today. So
okay, yeah, we spread throughout California. So any cities that you need us to look into further, we're happy to support.
Fantastic. So Kevin, we're gonna touch base as well. There might be another session. Your wealth of information, an amazing resource, and I think that whoever's on the call, and definitely we're gonna push it to our all of our members to have your information as keep you as a resource. Kevin, go by Kevin or Kevin John. With that, and we'll touch base. Send me whatever you want to send me so I can push out to the guys as well as attachments. And thanks again. We have a few more minutes.
Many.
David, hold on for a second. Just 1 second before I want to take advantage of the last few minutes. Also to share some off market on the chat. You guys are already sharing some stuff, so let's make sure that we have enough time for that. David.
David Yashar, are you talking to me?
Yes, sir.
No, I just want to touch all these Johns, many, all these Johns that you hear. It's going to end up costing Cello Kebab, or we're going to go to Mastro's. So, jokes aside, it would be my pleasure. I mean, from my side, I can talk on behalf of Sam. A lot of good guys on this call. So whenever you're out in LA, I mean, depending on what part of the neighborhood, please let us know. We really appreciate this because, this business is all about information and who you don't know. and I don't know you that, I'm just saying thank you. And there's a lot of good information, and I'm right now at my listing, so I'm going to call you after this meeting if it's okay, because I have
Sure.
questions. So
Of
please,
course.
if you're out in the West Side, Beverly Hills, Westwood, let me know. I would like to get together with you. Okay, Manny, go ahead.
Thank
Sorry.
Thank you. No, thank you, David. I appreciate that. Kevin, thanks again. And look at the chat. Start with Nazanin out of the West Side office. She has a few buyers, developers are looking for multi-units in warehouses.
What I'll do is I'll copy all these comments in the chat, and then I'll reach out to each one of you that responded here, and I'm happy to go over the phone and answer any questions in particular.
Yeah,
Great,
thanks, Kevin.
great. Do that. Yeah.
And you're welcome to stay for the last few minutes. Guys, what do you have? What are you looking for?
If
Go
I'm-
for it.
If
Open mic.
I may, this is David Yashar. I'll start with this. I'll make this very short. As Sam and I, we've got a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. We have a mix of office and retail. Sam and John, as we speak right now, I have Eric showing it. In fact, if you have anyone in the Westwood ready to go see a building, it's on Westwood Boulevard, 1456 to 1460 Westwood Boulevard. This property consists of a retail space of about 2,400 square feet that was built in the 80s. And then we have the 3-story building, which has the retail, used to be a US Bank, and 2-story above with subterranean parking and additional parking in the rear. Just shy of 17,000 square feet. Perfect for an owner user / investor. We are listed at $11,995,000 asking. That puts us at about roughly $700 a square foot. If you recall, I closed 1310 Westwood not too long ago, last year. And that was at about just shy of 700 a square foot. So if you got anyone that is looking in the price range of 10 to 12 million, and they're users for their own office, I mean, just a phenomenal location. You got Google to the south, you got the Metro line to the north, UCLA to the north. Guys, COVID, but in the next 3, 4, 5 years, it only goes up. This is where it appreciates. So if you have anyone that's looking West Side, definitely contact Sam or myself. Number 2, I heard someone's looking for multifamily. One of our team members, actually 2 of our team members, are very active doing multifamily. We have a triplex that's walking distance. Please listen to this. Walking distance to the new SoFi Stadium. It's at Century and Crenshaw triplex, 2 of which are vacant. I've told the owner, do not rent them out. So if you got a user wants to use one of the units, rent out the rest, or they can easily rent it. In fact, we have tenants ready to go. So if you have an investor, user, triplex located at 2916 West Century, asking price $1,375,000. The real cap, potential cap would be about 5.6, 5.7. Last but not least, Mariana, who's another team member, I don't know if she's on the call or not. We have a 5-unit in Inglewood, not too far from this one. It's at 10933 Acacia in City of Inglewood, central HVAC. On every unit, we have 4 1-bedroom, 1 bath, 1 4-bedroom, 2 bath. We're listed at $1,350,000. I was on the line with the seller. He is super motivated. Please ignore the asking price. We can definitely do better than that. I'm sorry I'm driving, but if anybody has any questions, feel free to give me a call on these. I'm at 310-710-5626. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, David. Drive safe. Penish, what do you have?
I think something like 10 to 15 million in the valley, preferably, only subject to AB 1482 apartments. It's hard to find this stuff, and the stuff that's on the market, there's so much basically my buyer called me on a Sunday at home to say he's anxious to buy something in that price range. He's frustrated because everything has multiple offers on it, so we're looking for something off market. That's, if you have anything like that, he's ready to go. It's just hard to find that product.
I'm sorry, this is David again. If you said 10 to 15 million, man, we got the deal for you. It's wide open. If they're
Where is
open
it?
to retail, 1456 to 1460 Westwood Boulevard. Sammy
Is it
John, why
apartments?
don't you go ahead? No, it's retail and office.
No, I want apartments.
Oh, apartments, I apologize. But Sammy John, why don't you put on the chat? I know everybody's looking for it. Your number, my number. I saw something pop up. They wanted phone number. Can you please put that on the chat for everyone to look at? If you don't mind. Sorry.
Thank you, Joe. Who else, guys? What do you have? What do you need?
This is pretty sad.
Kevin, oh, that's your information.
That's David Yashar's information.
The 310?
Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you, Dave.
I was on your website, David.
Thank you.
Okay.
I wanted to mention, I am looking for warehouse. If anyone has anything in the Inland Empire closer to the Riverside, San Bernardino counties, I'm looking for about 120,000 square feet in that area to purchase.
This is David. I apologize. What's your name?
I'm Galen Barnes.
Galen, we're in escrow with a guy that just does that. If you'd like to call me after the meeting, I can help you and put you guys together.
All
Okay?
right. Awesome. Thank you.
One last question. I'm sorry, Manny. Are we doing that August 31st? May I touch on that, or you don't want to touch on that? I apologize for the commercial guys.
Not
Not-
yet. Yeah,
Not yet.
we're talking about
Hang on one second.
potentially a commercial get together somewhere in the west side. Just for drinks and appetizers, but not yet. We'll chat next week, David, make a decision, and then we're gonna pull the trigger on it. So
Excellent.
great to
Thank
see
you.
you guys face to face, whoever can make it. Thank you. Anybody else?
So I got a couple of things. First of all, I wrote on the chat, I have a client who's in an exchange. He wants a retail location. I don't think he's very particular about the area or neighborhood. He just wants something that has somewhat of a cash flow, which is tall order these days. So anyway, send anything you have. His exchange is 12 million. You can go up to 20 to 25. So send anything you have. And then I also have it's listed. I have a development opportunity at 1811 North Kingsley in Los Feliz. It's a great piece of land, almost like 11,500 feet, R3, TOC tier 3. So you can do up to I think 26 units there. The catch with it is that there's 8 units existing, all occupied. So that being said, we're listed at 2.4, but there's room in the price. So if you have anybody who's looking for that kind of thing, let me know, and there's a deal to be made.
Just out of curiosity, what's the current cap rate on that?
It's actually not that bad. It's in the low 3s as it is, like low to mid 3s.
Are you able to deliver that somewhere between, let's say, 4 to about 4.5?
Let's talk. Let me crunch some numbers.
Let's do it. Let's talk afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna put my number here.
Thank you, Shara. Okay, and Galen, thank you for sharing. 15,000 land for sale in Corona for 650,000. Entitled for retail medical office. Okay, and look at the chat. You guys wrote your email, cell phone number, etc. And if you missed anything, feel free to go to either our private WhatsApp group. We have a WhatsApp chat, so all of you, most of you, and more are on it, or to our Facebook group, and I'm gonna put those in a second, just for any case, so you can guys once again join those platforms just for us. It's on the chat right now, so feel free to click on them. And WhatsApp is join directly, and Facebook, we're gonna approve you access. So guys, thank you so much. Kevin, thanks again for your time, for that wealth of information. Looking forward to get your stuff. We're gonna push out and send everybody.
Thank you all.
Guys, stay busy and healthy, and we'll talk soon.
Great. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.